Well, g'day, I'm Billy Daniels, and this is a really quick and dirty guide to being effective in fleets. I'm going to machine gun through a whole heap of little tips and tricks to get you being, I guess, useful and effective as possible in fleets. All right, here we go. So before you can be useful in a fleet, you need to be in one. How do you find a fleet? Okay, go to your neocom, which is this little E up the top here, and you've got a whole range of options. One of them will be social fleet. Now, if it's not in your neocom bar, you can click and drag it down here. Make sure it's there because it's something you should be using a lot. Here's mine down here. If I click on this, this brings up my fleet finder. Hey, guess what? That's handy for finding fleets. If there's nothing pops up, you can hit the Find Fleets button, and I can see there are a number of fleets here. I've got them set to show my available fleets. So for me, that'll be things that are open to Galente Militia. Here's one I want to join. If I hover over it, it gives me some details. It's the Aideron Southern Offensive. Good job, Sliphon. I could double click on that, and I will either go directly into the fleet, or it will send them a notification that I want to join, and then they will accept. Get yourself into fleet. Use the fleet finder to find fleets that you can get into. Alright, now just because you've got fleet comms, voice comms sorted, doesn't mean you have to use them. And certainly don't use them straight away. Don't be that nerd that comes on and just straight away starts asking, where are we at? What are we flying? What do you need? Because you've possibly have come in right in the middle of battle comms, or what, right when there's some important information going on. Use your fleet chat to get all that kind of stuff sorted. Spend a minute or two just listening, and you can get a feel for what's going on in the comms. Is it casual comms? Is it battle comms? So use your fleet chat for things like, where are we at? Blah, 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 blah. Okay, and there'll be guys watching that, and they can give you responses. Now, you might get an answer like, someone might drag into, I'm just going to put this into fleet chat if I can. So if you ask this question, where we're at, you may get a link come back. That will be the location, and if you right click on that, you can hit set destination, and you're halfway to finding your fleet and where you need to be. You'll also get some info, hopefully, what you need to bring, whether it be frigates or etc., etc. Don't forget when you undock to stop on the undock usually. So control space, or you can click on this little button here, stop the ship, so you don't go floating off. That way the FC can take a moment just to see who's undocked, what is undocked, and make any important decisions from there. Now, I said this would be a quick and dirty guide, so things are just going to come out here in random order, random thoughts. I don't have much time to put this together, but one thing that's is worth mentioning is make sure you group your weapons. Now, you'll see here I've got my weapons, 3 different buttons here. This little symbol here allows me to group all weapons. So particularly in a fleet, when you're usually wanting to put your DPS onto one target at a time, it's going to make my life much easier if you're only activating one module because you've grouped your weapons. Hopefully you've got your own faction warfare suitable overview. If not, you can always come down to the Corp message of the day, and there are a couple of overviews somewhere in here. Where have they gone? Overviews. There we go. Faction Warfare New Bureau Overview, New Improved, etc. Yeah, have a look at those, play with them, but make sure your overview is set and appropriate for Faction Warfare. If you're not sure about that, try one of these or speak up to someone in Corp to help you. Alright, one problem you're often going to come across, particularly if you join a fleet that's been ongoing, is trying to find them or where they're at. You say you've been linked here, the system, but they could be anywhere in that system. Also, it's handy to be able to anchor yourself. So by that term anchor, we mean just attach yourself to a person. Now in this case, usually the FC, particularly if you're flying a DPS ship, is the good person to anchor to, so you know you're always in the right spot where you're meant to be at any given time. A couple of ways you can do that. Find out who your FC is. Okay, it may be in the name of the fleet when you go through the fleet finder. It may also be that you can just listen to TeamSpeak for a minute, see whose button is lighting up, giving the commands. That's your FC. Find that person in this list and warp to them. Now, a couple of options. You can do it directly from this list. So in this case, if Luke Skywalker is my FC, or the person I've chosen to anchor to, I can radial menu and warp to that person directly from this fleet list. I could right click and select warp to member within 0. I'm going to get you guys to take one extra step here, particularly if you're new, is you're going to use a watch list. Now, the reason being, if you end up in a big fleet, this list can get quite long, and trying to scroll through to find people can be a real pain. Watch list allows you to take out up to 15 special snowflakes and put them in a separate list. Usually, this will be used by logistics pilots, logi pilots, to keep an eye on certain members, but we're going to use it so you can always quickly and easily find the person you need to be attached to. I'm going to select Luke Skywalker as my anchor, and I'm going to add him to a watch list. Now, a watch list is a separate little window, like I said, with these special snowflakes. I'm going to drop it in here. I can put up to 15 names into that watch list, but at the moment I just need the one. This is the person I'm going to be connected to, I'm going to attach myself to. So in this case, I'm going to warp to that member. As long as I'm in the same system, it will take me to wherever they are at. When I get there, I'm going to set this to orbit them at 1,000. That way, even if they move, I'll move with them. I know I'm always going to be in the right place, and we're good to go. So when I get there, hopefully we're going to take me to the right spot. There they are. There's my little fleet. There's my FC, Luke Skywalker, and I'm only, well, it drops me just a couple of thousand. So I'm going to select him, and I'm going to orbit him at 1,000. Leave that running now. Okay, so, and certainly while we're traveling, or, you know, if you're waiting, you know you're not going to float off into space and find yourself 100 k's off where you need to be, or during a battle, anchor yourself to that person. I would also suggest perhaps that if you're not set to orbit 1,000 here, you can right click on this, set your default to 1,000 meters. Oops. And that way you can always just make sure you orbit that person. You can, like I said, you can use your radial menu from here, from the watch list. I could also orbit 1,000 that way. All right, that way I'm attached. I'm not going to get lost, and I'm in the right spot. All right, once you're in your fleet and you found your fleet members, here is the single most important, critical thing you must do. When your FC calls a primary target, shoot the primary. Don't shoot anybody else other than that single target, because the power and the beauty of a fleet is the combined DPS of all the fleet members on a single target at once to burn through the enemy ships. One of the biggest failures of any fleet is what we call split damage or split DPS, and drives FCs crazy. If the FC calls a target, the only thing you should be shooting is that target. So how do you know who to shoot? How do you know who is primary? Two different ways that you'll probably come across in various fleets. First one is just the verbal calls. So an FC who might say Luke Skywalker, LUK is primary. Luke Skywalker in the incursus is primary. You noticed I said in there LUK. Some FCs will say the first three letters just to help you identify who that is, LUK. The reason being is that for you to help quickly find that in a list, it may be worthwhile, particularly in a larger battle where there's a number of ships, sorting your overview by the name column. Okay, so in this case, if I sort by name, and let's say I was using my actual proper tabs here and had a number of targets, all of this stuff here would be gone. I would just see my list of enemy ships. I can quickly flick through alphabetically and get to the L's. So if the FC calls LUK is primary, I can go through to L's and know that's my primary. Now, how do I lock that person up? I could right click and go lock target. I could press and hold and go through the radial menu, but by far the quickest and most effective way is this little shortcut. Hold down Control, and while you're holding Control, click on the name of the person you want to target. You'll see that they locked up. Ready to go. I can now start applying my DPS, scrams, whatever it is I need to do. Okay, Control, click. The other beauty of that is as you hold Control, the order of your overview will freeze, so it won't jump around. You're holding Control, you can click on whoever's being called. In this case, it was LUK. So verbal calls. But you'll also get many FCs who use the broadcast system, and that's really important. So they will broadcast targets. How do you find those broadcasts? You'll need to spend time in this history tab over here. This is information, information that gets sent out to the fleet, including, in this case, targets. So the FC may right click and go broadcast target, and you'll see now in this box the target has popped up, so you know there's no confusion, you know who to lock up. I can quickly and easily then lock that by right clicking and hit lock target. So I don't even need to go to the overview. I can do it from this. He's locked up. I can now apply the damage. Okay, so I'll just go through that again. The FC will broadcast the target. It'll pop up here. I can right click and go, oops. Oh, I've already got him locked. Okay, sorry, unlock. The FC will broadcast the target. I can right click and go lock target. Or even quicker, if I unlock that, as FC broadcasts it, I can simply control click on the history list. Okay, so just as I could control click in the overview, I can control click if in the history. So here we go. That target has been broadcast. Just control click and instantly it'll start locking them up. All right. That is the quickest and easiest way, particularly if targets are being broadcast, for you to know who to be shooting. One other little quick tip while I'm on that is if you don't feel comfortable using this, although it is probably the best way to do it, there is an overview setting. If you go to open the overview settings into the miscellaneous tab, move entries with broadcasts to the top. So what that means is when a target is broadcast, no matter what distance or where they are on your overview list, they will pop to the top. So in this case, if the FC broadcasts the target, Luke Skywalker, you'll see now this little icon, he's jumped to the top, even though his actually distance is further away than these other ships. And I can now control click in that overview. So find what you're comfortable with. You can either control click here in the history tab, or if you've got your broadcast set to the top, they will just pop to the top and you can control click them there. A common call that you might hear called by the FC as well as targets will be burn at him, burn at such and such, or burn at the primary. What that means is approach them as quick as you can and turn on your propulsion mod, whether it be an afterburner or a micro warp drive. That means burn at them, and you'll see in this case that Luke Skywalker target was 40 k's off. I'm now burning at him. You'll see the distance closing. Okay, and I'm going to control click. So I've got him locked up. I've burnt at him, and now I'm going to hit my orbit at whatever your optimal is. But the main thing here is that call burn at him. Burn at him means hit your propulsion and get there as quick as you can. The other call you might hit here is overheat, or give me one cycle of heat. So if now I'm just going to use point here because I don't really want to shoot my my alt here, is to overheat it. So the quickest way to overheat a module is hold down shift and click on the module. There's a couple of ways of doing it, but that's probably the quickest. Shift and then click on it. You'll see that the little yellow cap, a little sort of bit at the top here, comes on, and my heat dial for my mid slots here is going to start to rise. Really important you train your thermodynamics. It's really helpful so that you don't burn things out. But yeah, like I said, another story for another time. The main thing is if you hear the call overheat, particularly useful when we're talking about damage. If we're having trouble breaking a particular ship, the FC might call for overheat on LUK, overheat on LUK. That means, as well as shooting the thing, overheat your guns. We need that extra little bit of oomph to finish him off. Another common call you might hear is pull your drones, pull your drones. Okay, that means bring your drones back into your drone bay. Shift R is your shortcut. Okay, always get used to spamming Shift R, particularly as you get towards the end of a fight or if you're going to move off. It's so common for people to leave drones behind. Shift R will get your drones to automatically return to your drone bay. So if you hear the FC call pull drones, that is what he's after. You may also hear calls such as secondary and tertiary. So it might say primary is LUK, LUK is a primary, secondary will be Todisan, TOT, tertiary will be Pyro, PYR. What that means is that's the order that we're going to go through those targets, right? Primary, always put your damage on the primary. Primary is LUK, means you are shooting LUK. Secondary is Toddy, means lock Toddy up, because as soon as Luke LUK goes, too far away. Hang on, let me pause this. All right, I've got everyone back together. Let's retry that. Let's say the call has been made. Primary is LUK. LUK is primary, so I'm locking him up. Control click. Secondary will be Toddy. Tertiary will be Pyro. Lock them all up. Okay, have them all ready to go. Okay, I've got my primary, my secondary, and my tertiary. So that as soon as the primary goes down, I can quickly switch straight onto it. I don't have to wait to find and relock the secondary. So that's why a good FC will often call a secondary and a tertiary, so you can pre-lock those targets ready to put your DPS on them as soon as the primary goes down. One thing I would mention here, really worthwhile training your target management skill to 4 or 5 to maximize the number of targets you can have pre-locked. If you plan on flying Logi at any sort of significant level, I would even go beyond that and go to Advanced Target Management 3, which will allow you to lock up 8 targets, which is going to be very helpful in the future. But for the moment, if you can lock up 3 or 4 targets, particularly in a small gang scenario, that's probably enough. But get in the habit of doing it. If a secondary or a tertiary is called, lock them up, pre-lock them, ready to go. Or if you come into a fight and you're in a small gang and there's only 3 or 4, lock them all up. That way, if you need to quickly change targets, you can do it very quickly without having to find them and relock them. Another trick or tip for you is the right click. And pretty much if you're not sure, you can right click anything and usually there'll be some options. But often you might hear an FC call align planet 4, align planet 4, and you're thinking, holy crap, where's planet 4? It's not on my overview, and you're sort of going through trying to figure out, oh, is it on there? Wait, oh crap, oh. And you're getting flustered and you're falling behind and everyone warps off and then you're left behind. Right click, just anywhere in space will get you this menu. Okay, asteroid belts, planets, stargates, stations, structures, and from here you can then go into a sub menu where you can warp to those things. So if the FC says we're going to align planet 4, right click planet 4 align to. Okay, what that means is your ship will now align off in that direction. Now for an FC, that's really important, particularly if you're trying to move quickly and be nimble as a fleet. If the FC calls align to, you align to that destination, so that when either you get fleet warped or he says, all right, warp to, let's warp there, everyone's facing ready to go. Okay, so you'll often be told align to or warp to. If you can't find that easily on your overview, right click in space. It might be a Stargate. All right, everybody align to the Devon Gate. Okay, well, right click, Devon, align to. And your ship will do it and you're ready to go. That way you're going to keep up with the fleet. Align tos may also be broadcast into this broadcast history. So if I wanted us to align to the Acti Gate, the UFC may broadcast an align to. And you'll see here that it comes up with who broadcast it and what the instruction is. Align Stargate Acti. If I right click on that, I can say align to, and now you'll see I'm aligning to Acti. So watch out for align tos. Sometimes FCs will broadcast those. They may broadcast a warp to, and you'll see, just while I'm at it, the broadcasts, there's some different colors on here. I've got my targets are in red. You can do that in your broadcast settings. I would strongly recommend, as you get comfortable, go into broadcast settings, change some of the colors. So targets come up for red for me. If I was flying Logi, I will often set broadcast armor to come up in blue. Let's talk about that, broadcast armor, because that's another important thing you may need to do in a fleet. Is you may need Logi help. You're being attacked. You're suffering damage. You'll see at the bottom of this fleet window, there are a number of shortcut buttons here. One of them is broadcast need armor. Click it once, and you'll see Billy Daniels needs armor. So my Logi pilots will see that, and they'll know that they can control click me from there. Well, I can't lock myself, but they can control click me from there and quickly lock me up and give me armor. I would strongly suggest you set a shortcut button for that. I have mine set as Z. Go into, hit the escape button, go into shortcuts, and I think it's in navigation, which seems a bit odd, but you'll see broadcast, and you can set shortcut keys for need armor. So if I'm in a fight and I quickly need armor, I just hit my Z key, and you'll see it pops up there. Don't do this. Spam, spam, spam. You're going to get yelled at by Logi. Hit it once, and once you see it on your list, leave it, right? Maybe if you don't get a response, you could pipe up in comms and say, you know, Billy needs reps, or hit it a second time, but do not spam it, please. Just while I'm on that, how do you know when to broadcast? Don't wait until your armor starts to drop. The instant you get yellow boxed, now by that term yellow boxed, I mean you'll see on your overview, particularly if you're in a small gang, as soon as you get yellow boxed, that's when you broadcast for armor, because potentially your shield is going to go down really quick, and by the time your Logi get you locked up, you don't want to be just almost out of armor. Let me show you what I mean by that. So let's say Luke Skywalker locks me up. Let's do this on the other screen here. I can't because he's 500 Ks away. Good work. Hang on a sec. Actually, this is a good example. In all this chatting, I've not noticed that I've left my micro warp drive on. I aligned to Acti, and while I was talking, I've managed to find myself 700 Ks away from my fleet. Okay, that happens in the heat of battle. You get distracted and things happen. So how can I fix that? Hey, here's my watch list. Remember, I put my anchor in here, so I can simply right click and I can warp to that member. Okay, so if I find myself lost, getting away, this becomes really handy just to help you get back on track, particularly as there's a lot going on. In this case, I got distracted, floated almost 1,000 Ks off the fleet. Now I'm back. Okay. Now let's say I had was going to get yellow boxed by Luke, wasn't I? Let's just get Luke up. All right, you can see here up on the in my overview, I've been yellow boxed. Okay, it's not red, so he hasn't aggressed me, but it's flashing yellow, which means I've been locked up by that pilot. At that point, if you're in a small gang, that's probably the point to broadcast for armor. Okay. If you're in a large fleet, maybe 20, 30 or so, you may want to wait and just, if a couple of people lock you up, okay? Because if a Griffin, for example, locked you up, that's not going to do damage. They are potentially going to jam you. You don't want to be broadcasting for armor then, but you'll soon know, because if you get primaried by the opposing fleet, many pilots are going to lock you up at once. If your overview lights up with many yellow boxes, hit that shortcut key, in this case Z. Billy Daniel needs armor. I haven't taken any damage yet, but I'm pretty confident I'm about to. It means my Logi can lock me up, and when I start to take damage, they are ready to go to apply the help. Alright, there are probably a squillion other things that we could talk about, but like I said, this was just meant to be a quick, which turned out to be a not so quick guide. But look, there's a lot of helpful stuff in there. Main things: shoot the primary. Set your orbit, find an anchor, your FC or someone important, or someone in the fleet that you know sort of knows what they're doing, and anchor yourself to them during a fight. Means you're not going to get lost and float off. And hopefully there's been a lot of things in here just to help you. You can go back and review. I know I've gone through them pretty quick. I'm just going to quickly finish up by just having a quick talk about my UI and the way I've set it all up. Because look, there's no right or wrong way to do this. A couple of things you will see here. I've got my overview. I like to see velocity and radial velocity, which is, I'm not going to talk about those, but you can research them if you want. But you do need to be able to see the name and the type fairly well, particularly the name, because if we're talking about warping to certain plexes, outposts, sometimes you need to see a little bit more of the name here to know which one you're going to. I have my selected item here. I'm going to quickly just lock up these few ships so you'll see that where my locked targets sit. I have them going across here. You can right click your target list anchor if you've not done this. This little anchor moves your list around. I like to have it sitting right there so that it's quick and easy to select and then make any adjustments here if I need to. You can set it to run vertically. So if I right click that and say arrange targets vertically, you can have them run up here, whatever suits your flavor, your taste. So this is my selected item. Down here I have my D-scan and my probe scanner on 2 separate tabs, and that's my right hand side of the screen. Grouped my weapons. If I have drones, often that box will sit in here. So I've still got a nice view of the battlefield in the center of my screen, but I've got a lot of other information around the edges here, including I like to have 2 separate chat boxes here, maybe my corp one and my fleet one. I like to have local open, really important that you maybe have local set in a separate box so you can keep an eye on what's happening, who comes in, etc. I've got in this case, my watch list, which is really small, so I can keep that short. And I'm going to maximize my history window here so that as this history, don't clear it. Reason I say that is that the important stuff comes to the top. Often you might need to flick back and see an earlier target, so there might have been something that was targeted earlier, or you just want to keep a bit of a track of what's been going on in the past. So there's really no need to clear it. Your new stuff will come to the top. You can, I mean, you get comfortable with whatever you find, but good to have that history window going there, watch list, chat boxes, and yeah, that's it, guys. Hit me up, Billy Daniels, Aideron Robotics, if you've got any questions or if you're looking for a corp to fly with. We'd love to have you. And yeah, go out, get in a fleet, have some fun, and kill them all.